All right, we're on the latest episode of Blood Money, and today I have a very special guest, Dr. Kirk Moore. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing great, Vim. How are you?
Great, great. Thank you for being on the show. Real quickly for the viewers, I want to mention that we've actually done an episode with Dr. Kirk Moore for a show that we're doing called Meet the Frontline Doctors. And the reason I mention that is because the goal of Meet the Frontline Doctors is to help the individual doctors to raise funds because they are our greatest spokespeople. I mean, there's only a few hundred doctors that stood up to the tyranny. Dr. Kirk Moore was one of them. As we will hear today, and as you can hear in the Meet the Frontline Doctors episode, which is available on America Happens and medicalfreedom.life, he's paid a heavy price for really trying to save lives and not trying to harm people, do no harm, which is part of this Hippocratic oath. And these few hundred doctors that stood up against a tyranny out of 1 million doctors really need our help. So what I encourage people is to check out that Meet the Frontline Doctors episode, donate directly to Dr. Kirk Moore. We'll have his link at the bottom of this too, because he's been through hell and back just because he tried to do the right thing. And that's what we are going to talk about today. So Dr. Kirk Moore, could you give us a little bit of a background on your bio and your expertise and lead us into what is happening in your life today?
um, yeah, my expertise. That's funny. Well, so short story. I grew up overseas. I was an Air Force brat. Finished high school and college in the U.S. Medical school in Miami. I then joined the Navy, so they paid for part of my school. So I only got to do a year of internship, and they pulled me out and went active duty for as a Navy flight surgeon, as a naval flight surgeon from 94 to 97. Went back to residency, got done with my general surgery, plastic surgery, finished in 2001, and then I started out in private practice. So I'm a plastic surgeon. My expertise is breasts and butts, but I have a passion for I have a passion for doing the right thing, and I have a passion for kind of not being told what we're supposed to be, what we are supposed to do as physicians by a kind of a government agency that I had never been to before in 2020.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we're interviewing some doctors. I mean, we always interview doctors on Blood Money. I mean, specifically doctors that stood up to the tyranny, like Dr. Peter McCullough, Dr. Scott Miller, Dr. Chris Shoemaker, and we hear the story over and over again that I went to school for some of these guys went to school for 25 years to be able to formulate their opinion, and they feel like their opinion, their logical reasoning was taken away from them because of the tyrannical mandates.
Well, yeah, there's no doubt. I mean, like I said, I'd never been to the CDC website until 2020. That means, I finished medical school in 1993. So we're talking about 27 years of schooling and training and private practice and taking care of patients for that period of time. And all of a sudden we're supposed to kind of listen to anything and everything that comes out of out of an administrative kind of bureaucratic website and told how to practice medicine. Most of those people that are telling you what to do have never even seen a patient. And they're dictating what it is that we're supposed to do, when we're supposed to do it, and what we're allowed to do, what medications we can use, what medications we can't use. And they go even further than that. They actually take them off the market. So, they bought up all of the ivermectin supplies. They bought up all the hydroxychloroquine supplies, and then they wouldn't distribute it to people. I mean, that's never happened in the 27 years or 27 plus the 4 years of medical school. So 31 years of schooling and training and stuff. That's never happened. So, all of a sudden I'm supposed to just listen to all these bureaucrats tell me how to take care of my patients. And just like anybody else, it really kind of put a feather in not a feather, but it put a crook in my craw for not doing that.
Yeah. I mean, we were interviewing somebody just recently, actually, and they're talking about how the CDC throughout the years was corrupted. There was specific kind of individuals put into that organization. They're talking about how the feds, the FBI, starting in 2009, was corrupted, that it became politicized, and hence, this whole tyranny that we're experiencing was, I mean, a long-term plan. I mean, the people who did this really were not thinking in the idea of like months. they're really thinking in decades. I mean, they've been planning this for a while, it seems like. Do you agree that this corruption has been a long time coming, decades in the making?
Oh, there's no doubt. I mean, when you have an organization like the FDA, where every previous commissioner of the FDA leaves the FDA and then goes into industry and becomes a board member of a pharmaceutical company, that's the definition of corruption, is it not? They're not being brought into that organization to make a whole bunch of money as a board member of a pharmaceutical agency if they haven't done something in return for that. So
Yeah.
there's no way.
Yeah, yeah. Do you think that there is, I mean, this is as bad as it gets in terms of the tyranny. I mean, they've taken the power away from doctors. Do you think there's actually a cure to this situation? You think it's going to get any better, or is it going to get much worse until we turn the corner? Or are we going to turn the corner? I guess that's a three-part multiple choice question.
All of the above. No, I look, I don't have a crystal ball. I tell my patients this all the time. I don't know what's going to happen. I will say that the level of corruption and the public outrage that we're seeing is as at a level that I've never seen before. The amount of faith that we have in these organizations is at an all-time low. Just the COVID vaccine alone and what it's done for the public trust in the rest of the vaccine protocol and the rest of the vaccine program. There was a study done in Iowa that was done, I think, in late 21 or early 22, that said, hey, given everything that you know now, what do you put the trust in the CDC in terms of even the children's vaccine program? And that number used to be 10, 15 years ago, it used to be about 10% of people, 9 or 10% of people didn't trust the FDA. That number was in excess of 30% just in that 18 months, 2 years timeframe. So,
Well,
so it's really put a real, as far as trust in the government agencies that the public has. I don't know what physicians think, but more and more people that I see are coming out and talking out about it, and we see it every day. I think it's the more people we see, the more growth we get. The support that we've gotten on the back end of this in terms of the public is probably 90-10 in terms of what I see from terms of public versus, public support versus, hey, these guys they belong in jail, So, hero versus villain, 90% hero, 10% villain is what we're seeing.
So you made, I think from what I understand, reading your bio, reading about you, and actually having interviewed you recently, so there came a point that you made a decision to stand up against a tyranny and really carve your own path. Could you talk a little bit about that and the consequence of what happened as a result of that?
Well, so I was treating COVID patients because they weren't being treated. I had patients of mine, my staff, my family, my friends, they weren't being treated. So, and so they were coming to me, hey, what do you do, Dr. Moore? And so then I had to do this crash course in virology and try to figure out what this was all about. I mean, I was reading about it. And so I understood it. And so I started, kind of looking out, hey, this is where we are. So I started treating people, and then you start, it's not available anymore. Well, what do you mean it's not available? Well, the medications are gone. You can't use them. And then you start hearing, well, nothing's going to get back to normal until we have a vaccine. So, the vaccine was going to be the cure all, and knowing what I know in medicine, how long it takes for a vaccine to get approved just in the current system, 7 to 15 years. And so now all of a sudden we're going to have a vaccine in 9 months with a novel technology that has never been tested on humans. And then in all the animal studies, it killed all the animals. So how are we going to have any confidence in this? So that's where I started, and was in that. So when vaccines come out, I sign up to be a vaccine clinic, and I have patients coming to me for their vaccines.
Mm-hmm. And now you're going through a legal process because of
Yeah.
that. Yeah, tell us a little bit about that.
So I've been accused of giving fake vaccines and consequently fake cards for people that came in with, with themselves and their kids.
Hmm.
And so that, I'm in a position right now that it's legal. I'm in the middle of the legal case, so I can't really say much about it, but that's what I've been accused of. I've also been accused of taking money. And I took no money. I did all of this absolutely, out of pocket, no, didn't get paid. And even for the COVID patients, I treated everybody for free. And I asked for people to donate to if they wanted to, kind of contribute to donate to a nonprofit organization that was in helping health freedom and to change laws and to do all that. But we never took any money in the office.
You didn't. Okay. Are you raising funds for your legal fight?
So yeah, so I didn't. Well, one, we didn't expect this to happen, so it's not like I, put $1 million aside for a legal defense fund.
Hmm.
But yeah, so friends and family, when they saw what happened, set up a Give Send Go account for us. It's on our website, standformore.com, or at Give Send Go, Stand for More. So either way, you can get there. Anything is appreciated. We're fighting this battle. I'm going to try to get as much information as I can to help, in our case, to show that this was a fraud to begin with, and that what we did or didn't do was the right thing to do.
Exactly. I mean, the wrong thing to do based upon the information we have, and this is after interviewing dozens of doctors and seeing a lot of evidence, seems to have been not to give this vaccine to anybody when you know it causes myocarditis.
Yeah, it's really interesting to see this, and especially with the data that just came out with, the General Dynamics contract that they signed. That our government agencies in August of 2020 already signed a contract with an IT firm to collect VAERS data. So that goes to show you that this thing was not just something that just happened. Yeah. So less than 6 months after we start shutdowns in the United States and start talking about a vaccine, they've already negotiated with a company to manage the incoming VAERS influx of calls and adverse events and everything else, because they knew that they couldn't handle it. And anyway, so they do this in August. They plan on 1,000 a day, which was almost, it was a 8 or 9-fold increase in their typical daily calls or emails or submissions that they get to their VAERS system. They typically were getting, about 127 a day. And they were saying, well, and of those, about 5% of them were, this is historically, so this is prior to 2020. And about 5% of those were severe adverse events. So they tell General Dynamics to expect 1,000 a day instead of the 127, expect 1,000 a day, and expect 40% of those to be severe adverse events.
So this is before these vaccines come into the mainstream. They already know that there's going to be adverse events.
Well, they're contracting out with a company in August of 2020, before the studies were even done, before they were even conducted, to expect this kind of an increase.
I mean, we just interviewed somebody that's a former Fed, right? He was in the FBI as a prosecutor, right? And he's like, there's something, organizations doing this to our country, having this overarching control. And he himself says he doesn't know who or what or who this group of people is. I mean, what is going on that people in the FBI or former feds, usually I used to walk up to these guys, ask them any question, get an answer. And they don't know now. I mean, that just boggles my mind.
Yeah, there's so much going behind that we don't know about them. There's so much being hidden. It's just a huge bureaucratic just total disaster behind the scenes. Well, and that's what I was getting to. So during this whole, so after the launch of the vaccine,
that was a Freudian slip there, by the way. At launch of the virus. I mean,
yeah, launch of the virus. Yeah. So was it Freudian, or maybe it was, maybe it was both. So create the problem, and then here's the solution, right? But yeah, so after they launched the vaccine, within 5 days, they had already exceeded that 1,000 threshold, and it never went. Well, it went below that, for the next 2 days, and then it went above, and it peaked in the first month alone. It peaked at about 4,700 submissions in one day. Within a couple of months, General Dynamics came back to them and was asking for more money after they'd already been awarded $36.4 million for this contract. Okay. Wow. And in addition to that, during this time, when they're seeing that they're getting 40, 50, 60,000 submissions in a month, okay, when we used to get 40,000 in a year, they're getting all these submissions for all these events and for all these complications and everything else. And yet Fauci and Walensky and Joe Biden and everybody are out there on the media, and they're talking about, oh yeah, nothing to see here, nothing going on. In the meantime, behind this, well, you've got a green screen, but behind the mirrors here, they're standing out in front of the cameras like you and I are right now. But behind there, it's a 5-alarm fire. Okay. And, they don't know what to do with it. They got General Dynamics saying, we need more money. You need to add more to this list because you only gave us 6 or 7, possible complications. And we need, we need to go from a 6-figure list to a 7-figure list. We have now hired, we have now, instead of 4 people to manage this, we've now hired 80. Okay. 4 to 80, a 20-fold increase in staffing just to handle the incoming leads. And it's just, and yet they're out front saying safe and effective, safe and effective, safe and effective this whole time. And behind the scenes, a total disaster is happening, and they're hiding it. So they're lying to us day after day after day, and they still continue to lie to us. Rochelle Walensky's still on there saying no big deal. It's not happening. It's, everybody lies and nobody's held accountable. And that's the problem. When you don't hold people accountable for their lies, and you don't throw them in jail, and you don't have a consequence for what it is, this is what happens. You just can, oh, well, I got away with that, so I'm just going to keep saying it.
Yeah, yeah. And then you have, are really the poison pushers. Then this is actually the words of Dr. Ben Marble. Ben Marble. He says you can't expect the poison pushers to punish themselves.
Yeah, it's that old adage, the fox guarding the hen house, right? You can't, when you've gotten away with all of this for so long. And the thing about it is, we have let pharmaceutical companies with a profit motive run their own studies, present their own data to the staff at a federal agency that is majority funded by those same pharmaceutical companies to make decisions about whether to use this in the public. And on top of that, those doctors that are there are incentivized and paid money. Moderna paid the FDA or CDC, one of the agencies, NIH, I don't know, $400 and something million. It was on their profit and loss sheet when they when they presented at their last board meeting and shareholders meeting. $400 million to our federal agencies. And those people are expected to look out for us. Yeah. Again, it's just this. It's crazy, absolutely crazy. And the fact that people don't see it and are like, oh yeah, no big deal, it's just mind-boggling to me.
Yeah. It's again, we were talking about this in this last interview, how people just do not care about their neighbors anymore. This is not a general statement. I'm sure a lot of people care about their neighbors, but people can't help noticing that there are odd things happening in our society. One example was there was some old lady in a house being tortured. You could hear her. Next door neighbors do nothing. The lady's murdered, you know? Another example I heard is this guy that used to run, started Cash App. He was stabbed in San Francisco. He's walking down the street bleeding, and people are just walking by him. They don't care, you know?
Right.
Like, what's happened to our society in general that people just don't seem to care? People don't seem to care. Tyranny's coming. It's just, you know, absolute callousness. What's going on?
Yeah, I mean, it's a lack of humanity, and it's all up and down in our whole society right now. And you know, I'm not a Bible thumper, but it's, you know, when you take, and I'm not saying religion, but just faith in general, whether it's Buddha, Allah, God, Jesus, you know, whatever it is, you gotta believe in something, and you have to be brought up on certain foundational principles. And when you're not, then you know, this is what happens, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, and you know, I can't help noticing, you know, I was on Instagram earlier, you know, you have Justin Trudeau of Canada flat out saying that Christianity is the biggest problem in Canada. Biggest problem in Canada is Christianity.
Yeah. Well, you know, Christianity is the biggest thing right now. Masculinity is, you know, it is toxic. It's kind of like they're, you know, looking at anything and everything that we've had in the past that's been successful, and they're undermining it in the face of, you know, just kind of creating all of this, you know, turmoil, so that then they can come in and try to solve the problem, create the problem, come in and solve it.
Yeah. Why? I mean, why are we? Seems like, you know, we're ruled by sociopaths. I mean, how did we get to a point where, you know, mass murder, Holocaust, genocide, which is what's happening? You could watch a lot of our Blood Money episodes of some doctors talking about up to 1 billion people could die in the next 12 months because of myocarditis and vax injuries and that sort of thing. I mean, how do we get to this point where this is even permissible? I mean, this is, you know, Holocaust level. I mean, honestly, it's like when you're talking about billions, I mean, it's like, you know, it really puts, like, the numbers of the Holocaust and the Armenian genocide and these other genocides seem minuscule comparatively.
Oh yeah, there's you know, if those predictions turn out to be true, and the level of the level of genocide, if that's what, you know, what happens, is even close to some of these predictions, all of the people, the 120 million people or whatever that died in the 20th century, is going to be just completely overrun and pushed aside. There's some scientists that think that, you know, some people were saying that 90%, Dr. Cahill out of Ireland was saying that 90% of people were going to die within 2 years. And you add the level of infertility that's happening, and the inability to get pregnant and carry a pregnancy, with both male and female infertility. You add that on top of the actual deaths that are going to happen in 20 years. We could be down, you know, 3-4 billion people. It's crazy. We could be, you know, down 50% of our population. And I'm not predicting that. I'm just, you know, you look at those numbers of what those people are saying, and it's absolutely astounding. You know, look, Anthony Fauci has been doing this for 40 years. You read Robert F. Kennedy's book, The Real Anthony Fauci, and you look at what it is that he's done over the course of his career, and the amount of death and destruction with the scientific, quote unquote, scientific studies that he's done with various interventions and medications and vaccines, with AZT and AIDS, with the claims of what he was doing with trying to treat people in New York City and trying to come up with AIDS vaccines. I mean, this isn't that long ago. We're talking about, you know, 2000, the late 90s, early 2000s. I mean, we're talking 20 years ago, 25 years ago, and he's taking kids out of, you know, young kids that are orphans, and experimenting on them and putting feeding tubes in them, because these kids refused to take the medications, because they knew that that was making them feel bad, and it was killing their friends. And yet they find a whole host of just tyrants and
I mean, is Anthony Fauci the reincarnation of like Himmler, right? Whoever that the Nazi doctor was. I think it was Himmler.
Joseph Mengele. He's
Mengele,
Joseph
yes.
Mengele on steroids, man.
Wow. Killing, I mean, his own population, more or less, you know? I mean, I've heard, and the crazy thing about this is the gay community doesn't know a lot of this information, supports Anthony Fauci. I mean, if you look at it on a general level, I know a lot of gay people that think this is nonsense. We've interviewed Jamie from Gays Against Groomers and a lot of other individuals that are in the LGBTQ community that are completely against this. But it seems like if you watch the mainstream media, they're cool with this. Yet Anthony Fauci, I mean, just 20 years ago.
Where does the mainstream media get their money?
If I was to take a wild guess, it's like there's a lot of dark money in there. I think these people know how to print money to make money. It's controlled by maybe 300 globalists that have been controlling a lot of things for the last, I'd say, probably 60, 70 years, maybe longer.
Joe Rogan did a podcast a while back, and he looked it up online while he was doing his podcast. 70% of the mainstream media budget comes from Big Pharma.
Okay.
That's what we know, obviously. Okay. I mean, yes, yeah. I don't disagree with you that there's other money that we don't know about. Okay.
There has to be dark money and dark money, by what I mean by dark money is it's not done in the spirit of capitalism. It's not done in the spirit of I'm going to buy ads. You're gonna get paid an amount for those ads that is indicative of the ratings and all that stuff. That was all ratings based at one point. You would buy ads. Okay, Super Bowl, we get certain numbers of viewers, and that's why the ads are this high. Regular night, it's this high, right? Now what seems to be happening is the money's coming in regardless, because some of these networks don't even have good ratings anymore because people are sick of this stuff, and yet the money seems to be endless.
Right. No, I know. I don't disagree with you in terms of the dark money. I mean, it's just money that's hidden that we don't know about. But even of the money that we do know about, we know that 70% of that's in their, profit and loss statement. 70% comes from Big Pharma.
So, when Klaus Schwab says that they own the mainstream media around the world, by the way, because he's made statements like that. When they say, I mean, I don't think he's talking about pharmaceutical companies buying ads. When he says we own the mainstream media, he's talking about something completely different than, hey, I want a commercial. Here's $1 million.
Well, yeah, he's talking about the major executives there that are all at his meetings. Mm-hmm. They all come to Davos and they all fly in there in their private jets with their unvaccinated pilots and attend his meetings and then talk about how the rest of us need to get vaccinated and how all of us need to take all these medications.
Yeah, and they love prostitutes, by the way, just because whenever they go to Davos to prostitute, like literally they have to fly in like plane loads of prostitutes for that period of time, So they got the private jets, they got the good food, they got the prostitutes, it's a nice life up there for these elite, I guess.
Right. I've heard the same thing. So I can't give you any personal knowledge on that, but I can tell you. And Davos, I'll tell you what, is in the middle of freaking nowhere. Yeah. In the middle of nowhere. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, it's a great ski resort, but it is just, you don't want to drive to it because it's hours from kind of the closest metropolitan city.
I mean, there's no volcano that could coincidentally erupt at that time. I don't know. I mean, by Davos, but
there's one of those volcanoes that falls out of the sky. One of those big ones with those, kind of like those big bombs, kind of dirty bombs. Yeah, they start up high.
Wow. So good.
No, I was going to say, we just got to get a big enough drone to carry it.
Yeah. Seriously, man. Seriously. It's ridiculous what these people are doing to the world. Literally enslaving us, destroying our kids' futures. I mean, it's just madness, Just doing this show is like, I don't even know. It's like depressing just thinking about it because every day it's like bad news about the tyranny that's coming. Now, tell me about this whole legal process and how they came after you. Do you feel, I mean, they're targeting you, right? Do you feel like they're really coming after you to make an example, just like they've done with a lot of the doctors that we've interviewed on the show, Meet the Frontline Doctors?
Well, there's no doubt. They're looking at me as an example. And just like in anything else, they're targeting all these other docs to keep them from practicing and trying to go after their licenses and go after their board certifications. Now they've got somebody who, quote unquote, defrauded the government by, allegedly throwing the vaccines away. And And so now they look at me and they say, we're going to use him as an example so that nobody else would ever think about doing this, because now if we can string this guy up by his toes, throw him in jail for 15 years, take away his livelihood, take him away from his family, then it's going to be an example for everybody else to not do this.
Does this cause you a lot of stress, or have you found a way to deal with it?
I've found a way to deal with it. I have great support from friends and family. I have no regrets. I did what I felt was the right thing to do. I abided by my, as you mentioned earlier, Bram, I abided by my Hippocratic oath. The American Medical Association says that in conflict with the legal system, a doctor has to uphold his own moral and ethical codes. The emergency use authorization calls for informed consent and no coercion. We didn't do any of those. We still don't know what's in the vaccines. We still have zero data on what the ingredients are in the Moderna shot, the Pfizer shot, the J&J shot, the AstraZeneca shot, you name it. We still don't have a list of ingredients. And to this date, not one physical facility has ever been inspected by any government organization to actually test it to see what is in it, because presumably they know what's in it, and to find out whether what they claim is in it is actually what is in it, and to find out whether there's any consistency in product going across, whether it's the same institution checking bottle number 100 and bottle number 10,000 and finding out whether there's consistency, and then also checking on consistency from one facility to the next. Not one institution, not one manufacturing place has ever been inspected that I know of.
That is just absolute madness. Let me ask you this. This is a question, based upon my ignorance on the topic. So I would assume that if I wanted to find out what was in the vaccine, I could just go buy one, take it to a lab, break it down, and see what's in there. But why is that not being done? Is that purely based on my ignorance on the topic, that it's not possible?
Well, one, they're not going to give it to you. Two, they're only available through the facilities that actually provide them, and I doubt that pediatrics office or a family practice office is just going to give you a vial of it and do it. And then three, I don't know how many facilities actually have the capacity to be able to analyze a product that's not very common. It's actually never been used in humans before, the liquid nanoparticle that's out there. So it's not an easy kind of biochemistry, experiment. It's not like you can just, take this thing through a gas chromatographer and dump it in there and have it come up and spit out an example for you. You have to have the technology to be able to look at what could potentially be in there and then evaluate it. To some degree, I think Ryan Cole has done that. And he'd be a great person to talk to.
Ryan Cole, yeah. So your case has now been postponed till November. So is that, I know it was at an earlier time this year, but is that actually going to work to your benefit, that there's more information coming out, and at the end of it, you really look like the German that decided not to turn on the tap to the gas chamber? Is that where this is all going?
So, again, my personal bias is that yes, the longer this goes, the more information comes out. They're not going to be able to hide this forever. They're going to continue to try. They're going to continue to try to obfuscate and hide the data and keep it from being exposed and redact it. And just just keep kicking the can down the road. They've been kicking the can down the road on almost everything in our society for the last 50 years. And that's just, and they're going to keep doing that here. If Fauci dies as an old man without ever having been convicted, then, it's a gain for, it's a win for him. He dies with all that money that he made and all the profits that he got from approving a product that he had a personal stake in to provide to the, rest of humanity. So, it's just the amount of corruption that's just top to bottom in our society right now is astounding.
Yeah, Dr. Peter McCullough, I mentioned this on quite a few episodes. When we first interviewed him, his exact statement was, everything is corrupt, everything is broken. He was talking about all our industrial complexes and what hell they put him through, because he went through the same thing. They went after him. tried to take his doctorate. I mean, not exactly the same thing, but it's seems like they really want to make examples, these doctors. But the thing that I'm noticing is, and this is through interviewing, people for Meet the Frontline doctors such as yourself, is that a lot of these doctors are pretty much ready to go to the mat full on. I mean, a lot of these doctors are broke, but many have sworn that this is a fight till the day I die. Like, I will never start fighting for this, even if they reduce me to nothing. I mean, is that the way you feel? Is that, where does that come from?
I got a message today to call somebody, and this guy was wanting to know whether I was looking to do a plea bargain, or whether I was willing to, or whether I wanted to win this case. I'm not in any capacity going to plea bargain this. Look, if they came to me, if the FBI or the prosecutor's office now at this point comes to me and says, "Hey, Dr. Moore, you threw away $25,000 worth of our product. If you'll pay us 25 grand, we'll walk away. No admission of guilt, no nothing. And, we'll shake hands and, you just give us our money back for the product that we paid for." I would walk away with that, again, without an admission of guilt, because I'll spend way more than that just in legal expenses and costs just to have people come in and help defend me and us. But short of that, I'm not admitting anything. I didn't do anything wrong. I abided by my code. I abided by the American Medical Association. I tried to abide by the emergency use authorization. And I took care of my patients the way we discussed taking care of them.
We do. I think we had might have been our last year, might have been this interview. We had mentioned Donald Trump, right? And what happened with him with Operation Warp Speed. I mean, people in the medical freedom tend to be a little bit more right leaning. What happened there? I mean, was this dude duped? Was it like, was the con job on him? So he just was unaware what was happening, and what is happening until today? Multi-part question where, you would think somebody like him would have come forth and said, "Hey, I got duped. This stuff's not good for you." I mean, what do you think's going on there?
Well, I think he was duped. I don't think I wouldn't expect it's like somebody coming to you and saying, "Hey, we got this new technology and, it's the greatest thing since sliced bread. We're going to solve all of our problems. And here's the initial preliminary data that we have that's out." And again, all of it was false and fallacious and untrue and edited and all of the complications were kind of pulled out of it. So it made it look really good to him. And he's probably like, "Hey, that sounds like a great idea. Let's do it." Just like anybody would. You're at a point where you're being snowed just like the rest of us, about what it is that's happened and what it is that's going on and everything. I don't understand why he won't come out against it and say exactly that. And I think it's going to hurt him to some degree trying to defend it. I mean, he will tell you that he never wanted mandates and he never would have forced it on anybody who didn't want it. And that only, but right now in this day and age, that only goes so far. He needs to come out. He needs to come out and say, "Hey, this is what they told me." Fauci, Birx, all the people at the at the CDC and FDA and all these people kind of like, this is what they told me. This is what the data that they showed me. This is how they told me it was going to come out. He says he took a shot, took two, whatever it was. I mean, and he's fine, or at least presumably is. I don't know, but I do. I think he needs to come out, and before the election, if he were to come out and say, "Hey, guys, I'm really sorry. These people really duped me, and I'm going to go after them as hard as I can because they have it's mass genocide."
Yeah. I mean, they're going after him as hard as they can. So it's almost, they are terrified that he is, they don't have the control mechanisms over him as they would perhaps with a Biden, a Fauci, these people that were willing to just close their eyes to mass murder. I mean, you would think he is the loose cannon out of the bunch because he is unpredictable. They can't censor him. I mean, he was up there on stage talking about things that they don't want us to talk about, like ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine. They started calling him crazy. I think he might have even mentioned chlorine dioxide or something at one point, and they're saying he was telling people to drink chlorine. All things that are hidden from our medical system, probably because they all work, according to some of the doctors that we've interviewed.
Well, I mean, again, that's the layman coming up. He's getting some information. Somebody talks to him about, chlorine dioxide, and somebody talks to him about ivermectin, and somebody talks to him about hydroxychloroquine. He doesn't really understand it well enough to be able to kind of impart that to the public. But he's like, oh, hey, we got some great stuff coming, and this is what it is. Just like like you, like you just said just now, right? He doesn't have the expertise to say that. And so that's the way it comes across. And so then, the left is going to kind of bash him, and the right's going to say, well, he doesn't know what he's talking about. So he's kind of caught in a quandary there. But, again, I don't know. If he were to come out and say, I'm sorry, I was duped. I don't recommend him anymore for anybody. He would, I don't think there's 70% of this country that would vote for him.
Yeah, totally.
There's just no doubt to me. Now we might still lose the election, even with 70% of the people that vote for him. But that's another story.
Yeah, with the machines and all that. It just totally off the topic. This is a non-Dr. Todd, question, but somebody had suggested that RFK and Donald Trump, RFK Jr. and Donald Trump run together, with RFK Jr. being his VP. I know he's talking about running for the Democratic Party nomination. I tend to think that they will do everything in their power to prevent him and do like a Bernie Sanders on him, and that opens the door for this great ticket with a Republican Democrat, but a Democrat that actually knows where all the bodies are buried and could do a lot of good for our country. I mean, what do you think?
Yeah, I used to think that Trump DeSantis ticket was going to be the winning ticket. I honestly don't know. I think Trump, I've heard Tulsi Gabbard's name tossed around. I've also heard RFK's name. He's going to run as a Democrat. My fear is that the Democrats are going to force him off of this anti-vax platform and try to get him to conform more to kind of the hard left liberal platform. Yeah. Whether it's successful or not, I don't know.
We're talking about the power of trauma on another episode recently. Everybody that seems to have stood up to this tyranny seems to have some sort of trauma in their life. They know where this is going. One lady was talking about having lost a loved one. Another gentleman was talking about being a victim of displacement and genocide. And he sees what's coming. I say that because, RFK lost his uncle and his father to what I know to be the same group of, individuals that did not want, certain things to happen in this country. And I think that was, part of the start of where we are today. Hence, I just wanted to throw this out there that I don't know. I mean, it's hard when a guy loses his father. I don't know. He was 5 years old, 7 years old, knows he was assassinated, knows that there was a second gunman. I mean, how do you convince somebody like that to be part of that? I mean, it's almost, he's the prototype of somebody that could, I hope, never be part of that,
Yeah, well, I would hope so too. I mean, that's kind of where he is right now. I really like the guy. At least I like what he says. I like his interviews. I've never met him. I know people that do know him, and they say the same thing. My fear, though, is that, just like, AOC got a hold of Pelosi, I think the hard left side and the communist socialist side of our Democratic Party is going to, and the Bernie Sanders side and the, Hillary Clinton side and all that will kind of pull him hard left. And I mean, that's my fear. And they're going to try to get him to, come off of his anti-COVID and anti-vax platform.
Yeah. All to be discovered. All I know is that if that happens, I mean, we're looking at the abyss in this country. Let's be real. It's like if significant change doesn't happen, it's like I think we're in a century of despair. I mean, that's what happens after things like this, historically speaking. I don't think this is something that repairs itself in a matter of years, more like many decades.
Right. Yeah, you and I might not be alive by the time this thing all gets fixed.
Yeah. Cool look, by the way, man. I mean, I'm looking at this picture. It's like we might be related. I don't know.
Yeah, you have a little bit more hair, a little bit more facial hair than me, and it's still a little darker than mine. So
Yeah, that's why I was asking you about the stress, because I know
Yeah.
that since I've been in this movement, it's like it just seems to be going great now,
Well, yeah, when I was indicted in January, I had a full head of hair.
You did. That's hilarious, man. Dr. Moore, is there anything that we haven't talked about in this episode that in closing you'd want to talk about? Obviously, websites, how people could help you, which you had mentioned earlier, but worth mentioning again, and anything else that we haven't touched upon.
Look, standformore.com, give, send, go at Stand for More. And any help is appreciated. But really, it just comes down to people just need to start waking up. They need to start pushing back. The few hundred of us, you, me, the few thousand of people that are out there aren't going to make the difference. We've got to have millions of people that are going to, peacefully just say no and just not allow this to happen, and continue to tell people that we're not going to let you guys do this to us. And just wake up, start, stop getting your news from NBC. I mean, it's just kind of like that whole story of that. Who was that first nurse that was out there that NBC just did that? Was it Tiffany something or other? And she was the first nurse the nurse that got the first vaccine. They did it on national TV, and she collapsed, and then she just disappeared. So that's 2+ years ago. And this lady is, skinny, dark hair, and all of a sudden she shows up as a blonde with a big old hook nose. And you're just sitting here going, you're trying to say that this is the same girl that's here that got this shot, and you put those two pictures together. There is no way that that's the same person. One's got brown eyes, one's got blue eyes. I mean, yeah, contacts can do a lot of things, but they talk about the color of their eyes. People that have contacts in to change their color of their eyes don't talk about their blue eyes. They just, they just don't mention it. But it's, again, just realize that everything that we see is a lie. Everything that you see is a lie. And until you can prove that it's not, it's a lie. That's the way I get through life, on a daily basis now. If I hear something, it's a lie, and if I can prove otherwise, then perfect. Otherwise, it's still a lie.
Yeah, it's a fact. I mean, I'm here doing my thing with my partners because we all have a background. We all, I worked in the mainstream media for 25 years, and frankly, was faced with a choice like you were. It's like I could be part of the poison pushers. Mine was a mental poison. Mine was, I came to realize that what we're doing in the mainstream media with these TV shows often was pushing mental poison, and you could make that choice. You could be like, I could take the 6-figure check, high 6-figure check, and realize that I'm part of the problem, realize that I'm working for the devil, or you could be doing what we're doing, but that comes with a price.
Yeah, it does. I mean, you're not making as much money as you could. I'm not making as much money as I could. I'm actually spending way more money than what I have. And, like I said, I didn't put aside $2 million for a rainy day legal defense fund. And, it is what it is. But I, knowing where I'm at now, and if you'd have told me 2 years ago, hey, this is where you're going to end up if you go down this road, I wouldn't have changed a thing. I saved potentially dozens of lives. I saved hundreds of people from having complications. That essentially in those numbers that I started out with, if they're saying 40% of people that are going to be calling are calling with severe adverse events, and those numbers are small compared to what actually is out there. And there's studies showing that we're only seeing 1 to 10% of it. So let's just say we see 10%. And let's just say that 10% is 4,000 people a day that are calling in. That's 40% that's 40,000 people that are actually been injured. And if you're taking 40,000 people and now you're saying that 40% of those are severe adverse events, just think about that. So what's 40%? So you take my 2,000 and you multiply that by 10. So that's 20,000. And you take 40% of that. It's crazy, so the numbers are astounding, and it's just outrageous what we are going to tolerate and what we don't hold people accountable for. So 40% of 2,000 is, 800 or no, sorry. 800. So 800 people would have had severe adverse events. And let's just say it's 1% of 2,000, that's 20. So that's 20 people that would have died.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Okay.
Like Holocaust happening right before our eyes, you know? I'm a
Correct.
big fan of history. You know, I believe that there was a Holocaust, there was a genocide in the 20th century to my ancestors. But the blindness today, you
Right.
know, it's like you read these stories about how masses of people allowed this to happen
Right.
throughout history. And, you know, I get these emails like, hey, never again. I'm like, today I was like, no, bullshit. Like, it's happening right in front of your eyes. Don't send me
Right.
these never again emails because,
Right.
again, it's
Well,
happening and it's happening worse.
and then even on an individual basis, okay, Vem,
Mm-hmm.
people who did suffer injuries, who then get out in public on Twitter, Facebook, whatever social media platform you want to talk about, and talk about their injury,
Mm-hmm.
okay? The people that then just lay into them, you're lying, it's not happening, you're psycho, you're faking it, it's not true. You know, these people that, you know, now they're walking around with a tube down their nose because they can't eat. They're in a wheelchair because they can't walk. They can't talk anymore because their vocal cords have been paralyzed. And you have people out there that are saying, "Oh, it's all fake. They're just faking it." I mean, how do you go? And where does the humanity
I
go
mean,
to that?
that's straight up mental illness, by the way. That's mental illness brought on by television,
Correct.
hypnosis, the drugs they put in our water, the chemtrails in the sky. I mean, we got like 70 episodes of Blood Money, where every episode we realize that they're hitting us from all these different directions. Now, there's people like you and I that understand this, right? So we're conscious of it. There's people that are unconscious to that, and they have become, unfortunately, sheep, mentally ill sheep. And one of the individuals that we're talking about was talking about, I think it's like the 5 different steps to complete brainwashing, psychosis. And once you pass number 4, which is, according to him, we're way past number 4, he said there's no turning back. Like, it's done.
Yeah.
At this point, it's like, you know how there was like the Nazis and they had to go through 10 years of Nazification? That's where we are. We're in 1945.
Right.
And these guys need 10 years of denazification to
Right.
become, you know, normal members of society. And, you know, if you read the stories, I mean, that doesn't even help because some of them are, you know, closet Nazis. Some of them infiltrated our system and brought certain viewpoints and stuff. So it's a tough one, man. It's a tough one. It's a great tragedy how this, you know,
I
this
mean,
is happening.
what year was it? You said you're a history buff. Was it 1933 that Hitler took power? Was it finally?
Yeah, 1933. Yep.
Okay, so and the war ended in 1945.
Yep.
So, and there was probably some awakening prior to that, 43, 44, probably some pushback and everything.
There was awakening like back in 36, 37 with some, but you know, you see like good picture of the
Well,
Nazis.
those are people like you and me.
Yeah.
Those are people like you and me.
Yeah.
But it really wasn't like a mass awakening until, you know, almost 10 years later or more than 10 years later.
Exactly.
And, you know, and it took the Nuremberg trials in 47, you know, and that took another 2 years. And there's still some people that didn't believe that it happened.
Yeah.
So it's, you know, you're talking 15 years. You're talking almost a generation. And here in this case, and they didn't have any, you know, product floating around in their body that was going to kill them internally, you know, and then unless you do some biochemistry studies and some histopathology studies on their tissues, you know, they die from a blood clot or a heart attack or a stroke or something. You're like, oh, yeah, well, they just died from a heart attack. Well, you know, 6 years ago, they got 2 shots of Moderna. Okay. And, you know, and they wouldn't have died at 56 if they hadn't gotten that shot because they would have lived another 20 years. I mean, just since 2020, we've lowered our life expectancy from the high 70s to the mid 70s. We've lost 2 years of life expectancy.
Yeah.
You know?
Which is exactly what they want. I mean, you look at the writing on the walls with Canada basically offering euthanasia to people. I mean, they just seem like they want you to work till 64, collect your taxes, and then die.
Right. Yeah. Well, yeah, maybe it is a financial thing. Maybe that way we've collected all of your Social Security taxes and now we don't have to pay any of them out. So we can use that money somewhere else.
Crazy. But, you know, people like you and I, money is not the driving factor. Obviously, we got to try to do the right thing. And luckily, there are some that are doing this, and hopefully people start waking up.
Yeah, I hope so, too.
Yeah.
My kids are awake.
Okay. All right.
That's
well,
2.
Huh?
I said that's 2.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. I mean, you know, obviously, are they going to public school by any chance, or?
No, my daughter's a sophomore at Arizona State,
Okay.
and my son's a freshman in high school here, a private Catholic school. But even they're woke.
They are?
Even they're woke. Yeah.
Really?
Oh yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
All religions, Catholic religion. I mean, look at the Pope.
Yeah.
The Pope's out there pushing the vaccine. Okay.
Wow.
So
Wow.
it's all corrupted. So yeah.
Yep. Unfortunately. Well, Dr. Moore, thank you so much for showing up to this episode. And like I said early on in the episode, please, obviously, after you check out this episode, check out the Meet the Frontline episode. Sorry, Meet the Frontline Doctors episode that we did with Dr. Moore. And please, help Dr. Moore, send funds to him, support the doctors directly. And the one last point I want to make about this Meet the Frontline Doctors episode, kind of off the topic of what we've been talking about, but we worked, my partners and I, we worked in the medical freedom movement. And there's some issues there. There's some issues there because you have essentially the same mistakes happening. You have these top-heavy administrators that are getting the lion's share, that are making five-figure salaries. And then I speak to doctors like you. I speak to doctors like Dr. Shoemaker, Scott Miller, and many others who are really struggling. And this started to bother us because we're seeing these administrators and one or two celebrity doctors making millions and millions of dollars living a life of luxury while doctors that are on the front line are really struggling. So the reason why we did this Meet the Frontline Doctors series, which goes both on our platforms, americahappens.com, as well as medicalfreedom.life, is to draw the attention of doctors and to get the fundraising right into the doctors' pockets. No middleman that's going to enrich themselves, take private flights and all that stuff. Money directly to doctors. And that also applies to the frontline lawyers and individuals that have been affected by these vaccine mandates that have lost loved ones. So please check out those platforms and check out the shows and help these doctors directly. Thank you so much, Dr. Moore, for showing up to our Blood Money episode. And for the viewers out there, please check out americahappens.com for all our latest episodes, including Gloves Off with Joy Gilbert, the State National University with Gianna Michelli, Blood Money with yours truly, Conspiracy Truths with Mindy Robinson. That's where we're at. It used to be called Conspiracy Theories. Now it's Conspiracy Truths. And I will show you, I will see you on the next episode of Blood Money. Thank you so much.